Artificial intelligence is now a part of our everyday lives, often in ways we barely notice. AI powers the voice assistants that understand and respond to our commands. It guides navigation apps, predicting traffic and suggesting faster routes. It curates social media feeds, recommends what to watch, and even influences what we buy. But as AI technology advances, it's becoming harder than ever to tell what's real and what's fake. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at Checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at Checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on Checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
Criminals here in the U.S. and around the globe are weaponizing AI to create scams that are more convincing and more harmful than ever. AI is being used to create bogus celebrity endorsements, fake images, and even write books by made-up authors who don't exist. In this episode, we'll explain how fraudsters are using AI to supercharge their deception and share some tips on how you can protect yourself. We have two experts in the field of AI-generated fakes joining us today. Colina Koltai is a senior researcher and trainer at Bellingcat, a nonprofit investigative journalism group in the Netherlands. I understand you're based here where I am in Washington State.
Yes, I am, and we get to both enjoy the lovely sunny days when we do get to have them.
And Ben Winters, Director of AI and Privacy at the nonprofit Consumer Federation of America, which is located in the other Washington, the District of Columbia. Hi, Ben.
Hello.
So less than 2 years ago, October 2023, we recorded a Consumerpedia podcast episode, number 48, that asked the question, how will scammers use AI? And it was the conclusion of my expert guests that fraudsters were already using this supercomputing power to scam people to create realistic-looking email and text messages and write malicious code. So the question for me, for both of you is, how important is AI to fraudsters right now? It's come a long way in the last year and a half. Colina, let's start with you.
I think it's an incredibly powerful tool. Like if I wanted to switch careers to become a fraudster or a scammer, I would 100% be using a variety of AI tools in my repertoire. It's made everything, I think, so much easier for them and being able to scam people in a variety of different scams. It's made the ability for us to catch them, I think, a lot harder.
Ben?
Yeah, I think that what it mainly does is amplify any of the bad behaviors that we see from scammers and have seen for years. It makes it easier, harder to detect, and a little bit more personalized. So I think especially like some of the scariest, most damaging types of scams that create urgency or make it super personal about someone's family or life, that is easier to do using a lot of the commercially available AI tools we've seen over the last few years.
So clearly AI is helping improve the scams that have been around forever. Is it enabling criminals to create new cons? Have they come up with anything new thanks to AI yet?
Certainly the sort of live deepfake video scams where you could impersonate someone while you are on a Zoom or Teams with them, that creates this level of what consumers may traditionally have thought, if I'm able to get on the phone with a person, if I'm able to get on a video chat with someone, I can trust that the voice or face I'm seeing is actually that person and it's not just some machine. But now there are programs that enable that sort of live video and live audio to talk to people. And so it creates that level of intimacy, for lack of a better word, that would have people's guard down in ways that they hadn't been able to before.
Let's look at some of the ways AI can be used. Ben, in your report, you suggest that AI will be used by criminals to supercharge common scams such as the tech scam, the tech repair scam. How's AI going to help make that con more effective?
The increase of the use of AI agents more broadly in the economy are going to get people's guards down to not worry about the very concept of screen sharing, which is one of the main ways in which these tech support scams get your information. I think another way is that they are able to use audio and messaging services that don't have the common errors that might tip people off, whether that be language errors, grammar errors, the way email is formatted. So the tech support scams are just like a lot of those other scams. It increases the sort of passability of the content that you are giving to the person you're trying to scam.
Kalina, you looked at how AI is being used to sell products online by creating bogus images. Tell me about the coffee mugs that looked awesome in the photos, but not exactly what the customers were expecting.
I am mildly obsessed with this coffee mug phenomenon. I first started seeing these mugs online. People were posting these images of these really fantastical looking mugs that look like they were made out of crystals or minerals, really beautiful in a variety of colors, a variety of prices, and that people then shared the images of what they actually received after they got the package in the mail. It did not look anything like those images.
Nothing like those images.
Nothing like those images. I mean, it was, I guess, technically a mug or some sort of like drinking vessel, but I would not even guarantee that it would be safe to drink from. This was sort of highlighting a huge issue that we particularly saw during the holiday season, as a lot of people are shopping for gifts online. So from mugs to Christmas ornaments, and in the case of my father, he ordered a book that was completely AI generated. And I think we're in this like really interesting point in time when we think about AI generation images and videos and text in relationship to commerce, to how we purchase items online. There's a few different things that are happening here. From one, I don't think everyone has sort of basically the ability to look at an image and sort of immediately say, hey, I think this might be AI. There's something seems off with this image. I think we still take a lot of things at face value, particularly when we're shopping online. And granted, for a long time, people might buy something online and not receive the product that they get. And oftentimes this is maybe using someone else's image or someone else's product and then shipping out a lesser quality of the item. But we're in this phase where you can now create a whole new image, an item that didn't exist before, like mugs made out of crystals and minerals, to be able to share something like, oh, there's nothing else like this out there. This is a brand new type of item. It looks amazing. Let me purchase it. And really that item cannot even exist in reality once you look at it, once you really start looking at the details. And so I think we have this big digital literacy component with that, with being able to identify when an image is possibly AI generated. And I worry for even in the future, because AI image generators are only going to get better and more sophisticated, or maybe people are going to be better at maybe only use AI editing and edit a portion of the image to make the image more trustworthy.
So let's talk about that cookbook that your father got. There are a lot of books now, cookbooks and diet books and who knows what else, that are being written by AI. You posted a screenshot of one on Amazon for the Renal Diet Cookbook for Beginners, written by Ethan Newlife. Tell us what you found when you investigated the book.
Yeah, I wish I got the listing before my dad purchased it, but knowing that he's a cheap guy, I probably went buy like cheapest book, look for Renal Diet Cookbook on Amazon, saw a book that had good reviews. So there was like positive reviews on there, granted not a lot, but 5-star reviews. And so he purchased this book without a second thought, had all sort of the markers you would think without looks like maybe a legitimate cookbook. And so when I went to go visit him during the holiday season, he's like, oh, I'm having a hard time deciphering the cookbook and I don't really understand it all. I was like, sure, no problem. I'll help you with this. When you immediately looked at the book and started flipping through it, you could tell that this book was not written by a human in a lot of sense. And not a lot of the markers from like just formatting and the content, when you start reading it, you're like, this doesn't really make sense. And so a few things I started off quickly was just when Googling the name of the author, Ethan Newlife. Absolutely nothing. The only thing they came up with that name was actually from the Amazon listing itself. So that was already sort of a red flag for me, especially because they said he's already an accomplished author. He's written all these other things. So it's seemingly someone who would have an online profile having written other things on the internet. So the author didn't exist. The photo that was used on Amazon, it looked AI generated to me. I ran it through some checks. It did seem to indicate that it was AI generated profile picture. I then took a bit of the text and ran it through several different AI text generation services. All of those services estimated a very high likelihood of AI generated text. And so suddenly there was all these other components to it. So there was nothing in this book, from the author to the content to the images or anything about it, that seemed to be legitimate or trustworthy. And when you then investigated the listing, you looked at the reviews, these accounts here would just write positive reviews on a whole wide range of books. So you can tell that these reviews were probably not likely to be trustworthy and probably also false as well. So there was multiple failings here, and not to say to blame my father because he's very old and it'll take him a while, but there's a lot of clues here that we can look to in our own sort of ability to be able to go and decipher whether or not a book is trustworthy online. Because as you're right, it's not just cookbooks. It's something could be also like mushroom identification books. It could be actually children's books. It could be, a lot of extra learning materials. There's a whole wide range of content out there, even just in the book genre. People using AI generation images or AI generated text products, and also without disclosing it. So people are unaware that they're buying something that's generated by a technology versus by a human.
So, Ben, this is the soup to nuts for AI. It generates the content that's bogus and may be wrong. It creates the ad to put it on the internet. It writes the fake reviews. This is all AI helping the bad guys here.
That's right. And, when you are thinking about this whole ecosystem of where that AI generated content is being hosted, sold, promoted, shared, there are a lot of entities there, right? And there's a lot of questions about, the checks that are coming from the AI providers that are allowing you to make this content in the first place, but B, the sort of checks and moderation practices that the companies hosting this content want to allow. And so that's a really interesting open question moving forward that will have a lot of impacts on what people actually see.
Artificial intelligence has advanced so rapidly that it's now possible for anyone, but especially scammers and criminals, to create deep fake videos, including in real time. We're going to talk more about that scary thought next. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by Checkbook.org.
At Checkbook.org, we have the answers to your consumer questions 24/7. That's Checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that can help you with select local service providers, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on Checkbook to be completely independent and objective. Our advice is always free. Ratings of local services are available with a subscription. If you live in one of these 7 metro areas and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. Get your free 30-day subscription by going to checkbook.org/consumerpedia.
Deepfakes have been around for a while, and until recently, they were pretty easy to spot. Unnatural movement, lips that didn't sync to the words, but not anymore. Cybercrime rings are actively weaponizing deepfake tech and dropping these videos on social media. Recent deepfake videos included Elon Musk appearing to promote fake crypto investment platforms.
You can deposit any of the listed cryptocurrencies without worrying about your assets one bit. If you make the minimum deposit, doubling your money is 100% guaranteed.
Tom Hanks supposedly pitching a dental insurance plan, and an AI-generated Oprah endorsing weight loss gummies.
I have nothing to do with weight loss gummies or diet pills, and I don't want you all taken advantage of by people misusing my name.
Many people believe these bogus endorsements and testimonials when they see them on TikTok, Facebook, or their other social media feeds. So a question for both of you, how good are these deepfake videos?
It really does run the gamut of the mouth looks nothing like what the words are coming out of, and you can sort of tell, or if it is someone you have heard talking a million times, you know that cadence is just a little bit off. But honestly, you have to be super vigilant most of the time to know that it would be definitely fake. In an ideal world, consumers should not have to be constantly vigilant about whether something is real or not. And I think you sort of have to be nowadays if you want to be able to differentiate some of them. The real answer is it kind of depends, but they're getting pretty good sometimes.
And nobody looks at them like you guys do. You see something, it's a little tiny thing on your screen or your phone, you look at it and go, no one's questioning whether it's real or not if it looks real.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have to, right? You are just scrolling through and you get an ad for something that you do or don't care about. I mean, it might just get your attention because you never would have thought that you would see, LeBron James or Tom Hanks or whatever talk about this random insurance product. But yeah, it works to get your attention, and absolutely it's really hard to know whether it's legitimate or not.
I think that's an absolutely great point. We're encountering a lot more inauthentic content in a lot of different ways, in ways that people aren't necessarily preparing themselves. And, not that they should need to, it shouldn't have to. There should be better protections about it, because there are services out there that offer sort of AI spokespeople, in which people who have sold their looks and a video of them, and you can make them, using AI technology, generate them to say anything. So it's not perfect, but it's good enough that most people wouldn't look deeper and look to say, hey, maybe this isn't a authentic person, or this is an authentic video. And at the end, these Instagram reels or TikTok videos are selling a product. And so it maybe seems like, oh, I'm giving a testimonial about this, I'm talking about my career. And in reality, it is AI audio of a real person who's then being AI edited in a particular way to match that audio. And I think it becomes a really dangerous territory when we see these videos getting hundreds and thousands of likes and engagement. And I read through the comments, and very, very few people, if to none at all, recognize that this is, in a way, it's a scam, because it makes it seem like here it's a testimonial from a veterinarian about a product, and it's not real at all.
Ben, you showed in your report that news stories can easily be faked to create a tragedy. So a charity scammer could send you an email and say there was this volcano eruption or this tsunami somewhere in the world and show people in a desperate situation and ask for your money, and that never happened. And what I saw from your report is pretty realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw this earlier this year when there were some really bad hurricanes and weather events throughout the southern United States. So in someone's head, they're already primed to think, okay, there is this natural disaster. There are going to be calls for charity. Often scams are preying on current events or recent events. And so, whether it be a earthquake in, Haiti or somewhere else, or a photo that went really viral that I do highlight in the report of a little girl looking absolutely terrified with a life raft holding a little dog. And yeah, people on social media, through email targeting, email campaigns, people were blasted this information and provided a sort of link to give money to purportedly help people like this little girl, when in reality that money is not going to help anything, just towards a scammer.
And now deep fake videos can take place in real time, which is sure to make romance scams more profitable for the bad guys. So they're going to be able to now talk to you on Zoom or something like that and just be this beautiful person on the other end of the line, and it's not really them?
Yeah. There was a recent illustration in a 404 Media article of real-time deepfake fraud, where you are able to have your real expression sort of have a person or face that is not yours layered over it, while also distorting your voice to match that. And so with romance scams, which is a massive loss for people, over $670 million lost just in 2024, according to the FBI, there's already a lot of AI used by chatbots in the texting portion on a dating app or over email, over a messaging app. But now, when you in the past thought, okay, if I get them on the phone or a video chat, I can verify that they're a real person, that is now sort of thrown into question because the increasing availability of this real-time video and audio masking.
So it's sort of kind of like the technology they used when Tom Hanks was in the Polar Express movie. Tom Hanks did his thing, and then the computer showed the conductor doing his thing. The technology's so good, that's what they're doing in real time.
Yeah.
Kalina, I know you have a personal story about this.
Yeah, so my father, who's 82, bless him, he is trying to do a little bit of that online dating. And I think he's oftentimes the subject of these romance scams. And I think a lot of them end up using AI for different components of the romance scams that he gets involved in. And that could be from sometimes AI edited images that are sent to him, or even sometimes what he'll try to do, he'll ask the women that he talks to send them a photo of their ID, like their driver's license, to prove that they're real. And then once I take a look at it, I'm like, this is Photoshop, this is edited. And then I sometimes will see a video. He's like, oh no, they sent me a video of them. And very clearly to me, I can tell that this is AI audio, and this is an image that they've tried to turn into a video, and it's just not done very well. And so the bar seems to be even really low. And, he'll say no, I talked to them on video, I talked to them. And then when I get to see the content, because maybe he'll try to record it on another device for me to prove that they're real, it's an AI image, it's AI audio. And it's something that's happening, I can tell you for sure, with my own father today. And as much as I like to try to prove that some of these women are inauthentic or they're not real, it becomes really hard to convince someone, particularly when they're emotionally involved in someone. So there's this component of being invested into a online relationship. You're like, no, I've been talking to them, I've seen video, I've seen images, I've heard them, and yet I have to tell him that's not real, that's inauthentic. And it's how do you convince someone who's seeing what they see?
Yeah.
And so I think it is something that it's happening today, and I think that is something it's really dangerous, because even though my father is 82, it doesn't mean it's only something that's happening to senior citizens. It could happen to anyone of any age. I think there was this really viral story of this woman who thought she was in a relationship with, I think, Brad Pitt, with these AI the photos there, and she got scammed out of a large sum of money, thinking that he was in a hospital and needed to send him money. And so it could happen to anyone. She wasn't elderly or anything. So it's really, really something that I think we need to be conscientious of, from classic, scammer groups like the Yahoo Boys based in Nigeria that are using that technology that Ben mentioned from the 404 article, to a wide variety of groups where we don't even know what kind of technology, because the technology that's available off the shelf, that's not something that's relegated relegated to just a Hollywood movie set. That's something you can purchase and use today with rather low tech literacy is convincing to already a large enough swath of the population that you'd make your investment on that technology back like 10 or 100 times fold. It does take work. It does take time. And the amount of damage a singular person can do, I think, has exponentially increased with the availability of AI technology.
And Dad, if you're listening to this segment, from now on, talk to your daughter before you fall in love with someone, okay? That's just my consumer man advice.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do you protect yourself? And will AI be used to police AI? We're going to talk about that next. I'm Herb Weisbaum, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by Checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. The losses to cyber fraud hit a new record in 2024. According to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, cyber criminals stole $16.6 billion from Americans last year, an increase of 33% from 2023. More than half of these losses, $9 billion, resulted in scams involving cryptocurrency, both bogus crypto investment schemes and making payments to scammers via a digital currency. Cryptocurrency-related fraud increased 66% from 2023. While anyone can fall for a cyber scam, the FBI says individuals 60 and older are greatly affected.
AI fakes are here, and they're getting harder to spot, so we need to know how to deal with it. Kalina and Ben, sometimes it's easy to spot a computer-generated image, a hand with six figures, tables or chairs that are floating in the air because they don't have legs, skin that looks like plastic. But AI is getting so much better. Kalina, you know how to look for shadows in the wrong place or perpendicular lines that don't stay perpendicular, but for most of us, we don't have that skill set. We see an image and we assume it may have been touched up a little bit, but it's not totally fake. What are we to do?
I think that's a great question. I think learning the skills is an important part, but of course, not everyone needs to do that as much as I would want everyone to learn those skills, because I think if we rely solely on an AI detection tool, those tools can be fooled. So I think relying on a tool is not going to be the best way. And I would personally, and it's a hot take, but I would love to see regulation in the area. I think, as AI image generation, video, audio has really just exploded in the past few years, we are so behind on what we should actually be doing. There's that famous quote from Jeff Goldblum's character in Jurassic Park where he says, your scientists are so busy thinking whether or not they forgot to ask themselves if they should, something along those lines. And just because we have the ability to have this technology, we shouldn't just let it go completely haywire, which is kind of what it feels like going right now. I spend a lot of my time thinking about AI generated images, particularly when it comes to non-consensual imagery, non-consensual sexually explicit imagery. And of course that technology exists and it's meant to be convincing, and a lot of it's gotten a lot better just over the past year. But just because that technology exists and it's capable doesn't mean that should be a technology that is widely accessible and used. There should be really tight restrictions on technology that has great potential to cause harm. And we just don't have any of that right now. In fact, there's lots of businesses, their whole model is creating this technology to make a profit off of it, right? You see these businesses out there offering these AI tools that are used consistently time and time again to either scam or cause harm or defraud in some way. And that's perfectly legal with no sort of repercussions onto anyone. And so I really do think, as controversial as a take it might be to some communities, I think regulation, even though it's not the perfect solution, might be the only way, or some sort of consequences, some sort of way to help at least reel us in. Otherwise, people are just going to continue to profit off of it, and just harm is going to be done to just so many different communities.
Ben, you deal with people on Capitol Hill, and we're not exactly in a point in our country where we like regulations. So while I agree with everything Kalina said, I don't know if there's going to be a regulatory fix. Do companies somehow have to be held responsible, or what are we going to do about this?
I think it is a sort of all of the above situation. There is definitely not a magical legislative fix. Even if I had a magic wand, it's really hard to get restrictions and things clamped down on the ability to make or send this stuff in general. But where we can and do need to beef up regulatory resources are things like providing more resources to the state attorneys general, as well as as the FBI and the FTC, who are tasked with enforcing a lot of these scams, there needs to be better reporting mechanisms so that when an individual is on a dating app or a social media platform or an email provider or your text, when you report that junk, that it goes on to the appropriate authorities so that people know what the trends are. Education and putting it on the consumer to figure out whether it's AI or not is not a sustainable solution. I think some of the things that consumers can do is to follow sources that publish information about what these scams are. So whether that is something like Bellingcat or things like the AARP Scam Watch or the Better Business Bureau Scam Tracker or even a subreddit called Scams on Reddit, there are a lot of sources where people can just see in their newsfeed or in an email newsletter, this type of scam is happening more and more so that you can be aware of it. I think the other thing that we try to tell folks is to report when things happen, and you might not get recourse for the harm that you suffered as part of a scam, but you might help other people watch out for it or help enforcement agencies catch it. And then, sort of last but not least, the companies do have to be a little bit more responsible with how they roll these things out. They are absolutely profit-making machines, regardless of the rhetoric about how much OpenAI wants to benefit all of humanity or whatever they say. But at the same time, they then release these tools with very little guardrails. And so there's a real choices to be made at every stage, whether it is a chatbot or a audio generation platform. There are choices about what you are going to actually respond to. Sometimes you might get a response on a chatbot saying, "Oh, I can't help you with that," if something seems clearly illegal. But there's a lot of ways to get around that. On audio and video, Consumer Reports study that was super recent illustrated that almost none of the commercially available audio and video generation apps require authentication of the actual person you are trying to replicate. So a lot of the ways these things work, you could take this podcast and upload 10 seconds of my voice to an audio generation platform, and then you could get me to sort of say whatever I want. And so there are methods to require authentication from me, or at least efforts to do that, so that someone can't just pick that up and do it, and then that reduces the likelihood of it being disseminated if it has to be authorized. So, there are little things here and there that the companies have to take responsibility for, that the platforms that this content is shared on and through have to take responsibility for in moderation, to the extent that whether it's through state legislation, federal legislation, or enforcement agencies, some of these people both doing the scams but also facilitating them have to be held responsible.
And I think the bottom line and the takeaway from this episode should be slow down. Criminals always try to rush you to get you to act on impulse. Don't believe everything you see. Assume anything and everything can be faked, and you need to check it out before you take any action, and especially if you give away any personal information or any money. I want to thank both of you for joining us. Kalina Koltai is a senior researcher at Bellingcat, an investigative journalism group. Thank you, Kalina.
Thank you for having me here.
And Ben Winters, director of AI and privacy at the Consumer Federation of America.
Thanks so much.
I put a link to Kalina's report on spotting AI fakes and Ben's report on how AI will become a normal part of business for fraudsters in the show notes. You might also want to check out these other Consumerpedia podcasts. They deal with protecting yourself from fraud. Episode 11, How to Protect Yourself from Identity Theft. Episode 74, Why Passkeys Are Better Than Passwords. And Episode 76, Fake Reviews Are Everywhere. And with that, we come to the end of another episode. We hope you'll rate this one and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us on Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at My Consumerpedia on X. I'm Herb Weisbaum. Thanks for listening.
Consumerpedia is a public service of Checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Seattle, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.